The day I graduated college, 3 things happened. 1. I gave the valedictorian speech to a room full of strangers. 2. My parents didn't show up because they were busy helping Jenna move into her new condo. And 3. My girlfriend, Megan, who knew how much this day meant to me, chose to go with them. Said she didn't want to upset my mom. That was the moment I realized I wasn't dating a woman. I was dating an extension of my mother's approval ratings. And apparently those were always higher for my sister. My name's Ryan Walker. I'm a computer science guy, quiet type. Grew up in a house where silence wasn't golden, it was just the only way I knew how to exist without choking on resentment. Every trophy I won, every exam I aced, every late-night line of code that landed me scholarships and internships, all of it was ignored in favor of Jenna's latest yoga retreat or her new pastel throw pillows. And Megan? She was supposed to be different. She said she loved how focused I was, how I listened better than anyone. But let's just say, when it came time to pick between my biggest milestone and my sister's U-Haul, she proved she was fluent in the Walker family tradition: ignore Ryan unless you need tech support or a guilt-free excuse to miss something important. You want to hear the punchline? The only person who showed up for me was Uncle Rick. Black leather jacket, steel blue eyes, zero tolerance for nonsense. He didn't even blink when I asked where everyone else was. Just said, "Guess they're allergic to your success." Took me out to dinner afterward. The man ordered a steak, handed me an envelope, and said, "There's $50,000 in here. Use it to disappear. For good." And that's what I did. Graduated, vanished, never looked back. But of course, people only remember your name when they need something. And wouldn't you know it, my name started sounding real sweet again once I made a small fortune. Funny how that works. Disappearing wasn't dramatic. No slamming doors, no fiery monologues. Just a quiet extraction, surgical, clean. I changed my number the morning after graduation. Deleted my social media before lunch. Packed a duffel bag, bought a one-way ticket to Seattle, and that night I was on a flight out of their orbit, looking down at the city that never really saw me. Nobody called. Nobody asked. It was like I slipped through a crack they'd been pretending wasn't there. Well, except Megan. She texted 3 days later. "Hey, your mom said you were just being sensitive. Can we talk?" "Ah, yes." The classic, "You're not hurt, you're just dramatic." I left it on read. She followed up a week later with a voicemail that started with, "I didn't want to get in the middle," and ended with a very soft, very concerned, "Miss you." I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her, the version that existed before she turned into my mom's personal assistant. The one who used to talk about building a life together. Not the one who bailed on me to help Jenna arrange her shoe rack. Seattle hit me like a cold wind to the face. Fast-paced, clean-cut, and just distant enough to start over without bumping into someone who thought of me as Jenna's brother. Uncle Rick's friend, Jim, ran a boutique security software firm, small team, big contracts, no time for egos. He hired me on the spot. "I like quiet people," he said. "They usually see what loud people miss." That first year, I barely spoke to anyone outside of work. No friends, no dates, no holiday calls. Just caffeine, code, and the stubborn belief that if I poured everything into building a life of my own, maybe, just maybe, I'd stop feeling like a supporting character in someone else's movie. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment with good locks and no memories. Bought my groceries in silence. Ate dinner in front of a blank wall. Lonely? Sure. But for the first time in my life, the silence belonged to me. Turns out if you give a quiet guy a computer, a locked room, and a reason to prove the world wrong, he'll build an empire. By year 2 in Seattle, I was leading dev teams on multi-million-dollar security contracts. By year 3, I had my own condo, my own parking space, and more job offers than unread birthday texts from my mother, which, for the record, was still sitting at 0. They didn't know where I was. Didn't ask. And I didn't volunteer. I had a new number. New email. New name on every social account, though let's be honest, I didn't post. I wasn't trying to be seen anymore. I was done performing. And as for Megan? She faded like a weak Wi-Fi signal. Every now and then I'd see a tagged photo float by, someone from college, some mutual friend I hadn't burned entirely. She looked the same. Smiled the same. Still hanging out with Jenna. They were probably talking about me. Ryan just ghosted. We don't know why. He was always so sensitive. That word again. It's funny, sensitive is what they call you when your disappointment makes them uncomfortable. Like feeling neglected is a character flaw. Like noticing how little they care is somehow your fault. What they never saw coming was the version of me who stopped caring whether they understood or not. This new life? It was all mine. No family name attached. No Jenna's brother label. Just Ryan Walker, cybersecurity engineer, founder of his own dev firm and owner of a silent, unlisted number that rang for exactly no one. And that, as far as I was concerned, was the happy ending. Until 3 years later, they found me. And wouldn't you know it? It wasn't because they missed me. It was because they needed me. They didn't call. They didn't email. They just showed up. It was a Tuesday because of course it was. Chaos never comes with a dramatic thunderstorm or slow music. It shows up on laundry day with a knock that doesn't stop. I opened the door expecting a delivery. Instead, there they were, Mom, Dad, and Jenna, standing on my porch like they'd taken a wrong turn somewhere in 2016 and just now realized I existed. Jenna wore sunglasses big enough to cover a small betrayal. Dad looked like he was trying to remember which name went with this address. Mom just gave me that smile, the one that said, "We don't talk about the past because it makes me look bad." "Ryan," Mom said brightly, like we'd just spoken yesterday. "You look good." "You found me," I said. Not a question. Just a sad little fact. She laughed. Laughed. "Oh, you know. A friend of a friend from church ran into someone at a tech event. Right? Divine intervention via LinkedIn. They shuffled in awkwardly, didn't even ask permission. Just stepped inside like they still had keys to my life." Jenna was the first to crack. "So, I'm going through a bit of a situation," she started. "The economy, you know?" "Yeah. I did know. I just didn't realize it was my job to fix it. Their business, the one they used to brag about at every barbecue while ignoring me at the grill, had apparently taken a nosedive. Something about overleveraged properties and bad timing. And Jenna? She'd apparently burned through a startup fund that wasn't her fault. They didn't say the word money. Not right away. They just circled it. Hovered around it like a bad smell they hoped I'd volunteer to clean up. Mom reached over, patted my hand. "We're just so proud of everything you've done," she said. I almost laughed out loud. Proud? I could have lit myself on fire in that house and they'd have asked if Jenna needed a sweater. And now suddenly I was worth noticing. I looked at the three of them, the architect, the accomplice, and the afterthought, and realized something incredibly freeing. I didn't owe them a damn thing. I didn't kick them out. Not right away. That would have been too satisfying. And frankly, I wanted to see how far they were willing to go. Spoiler, pretty far. They sat on my couch like it hadn't been years since they last cared where I lived. Jenna kept fidgeting with her phone, probably checking her reflection more than her messages. Dad stayed quiet, which was his usual move when things got uncomfortable. And Mom? She was in full performance mode. Soft voice, hand on her chest. "The works." "So," she said, "we didn't want to ask for anything, of course. We just thought maybe you'd have some ideas." "Some ideas," I repeated. "For how to save your failing business?" "Well, you've always been the smart one," Dad added, like that was something he'd ever actually said before today. I leaned back and crossed my arms. When did the pride start, exactly? Sometime between ignoring my graduation and telling Megan it was okay to skip it too. Silence. Jenna sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "Come on, Ryan. That was years ago." "Exactly," I said. "Years ago. And not one word since. Not a call, not a birthday message, not a hey, congrats on not being a total disappointment. Just silence until now." They didn't argue. Because they couldn't. This wasn't some emotional misunderstanding. This was convenience dressed up as reconciliation. They didn't come here because they missed me. They came because they missed the lifestyle they assumed I'd grown into. "And Megan?" I asked, "So where's Megan these days? Still helping you alphabetize Jenna's throw pillows?" That got me a flinch from Mom and a grimace from Jenna. Apparently, that relationship didn't survive much longer after I disappeared. Guess even Megan had her limits when her social clout ran out. Funny how loyalty fades when the attention does. They eventually dropped the pretense. Jenna said it directly, "Look, we need help. Alone. Just to get through this. Alone." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You'll have better luck with your Instagram followers." And then I stood up. Because the conversation was over. You ever watch someone try to pretend they still have dignity while begging? It's fascinating. There's this little dance they do, mixing fake humility with forced confidence. Like if they stand up straighter while asking for money, it somehow makes it noble. That was Jenna. She actually had the nerve to say, "It's not charity, Ryan. It's family helping family." Right? The same family that forgot I existed until I became useful. I didn't say much. I just walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared out the window while they waited in silence behind me. I could hear Mom whispering something to Dad. Couldn't quite make it out, but I caught the word grudge. And that's when it hit me. They weren't sorry. They weren't even embarrassed. They genuinely thought this was just a little hiccup. That I'd come around once I got all that childhood resentment out of my system. Like they hadn't spent 2 decades stepping over me to cheer for Jenna's spelling bees and birthday brunches and whatever phase she was monetizing on TikTok that year. I turned around and said, you know what the most interesting thing about neglect is? It doesn't leave bruises. Just silence. That kind of hurts harder to prove. Easier to dismiss. You get to pretend it was never that bad. No one spoke. I walked them to the door. Mom tried one last smile. We just want what's best for you, honey. I opened the door wider. Good. Because this is what's best for me. They left without another word. Not because they respected the boundary, but because they finally realized the door wouldn't open again. Not for Jenna. Not for my parents. And not for anyone who only remembers me when the lights go out. After they left, I expected a follow-up. A guilt text. An emotional email. Maybe even a surprise visit from a cousin I hadn't spoken to since dial-up internet. But no. Nothing. They went quiet again, just like they had for years before showing up on my doorstep. Except this time it wasn't neglect. It was retreat. That silence? It wasn't absence, it was calculation. They realized I wasn't the same kid who used to wait around for a pat on the head or an attaboy that never came. I was the adult version of their worst fear, someone who didn't need them and wasn't afraid to say so. About a week later, I got an email from Jenna. The subject line said, "Let's not let money ruin our family." I didn't open it. Didn't have to. I already knew what was inside, some combination of guilt, nostalgia, and barely disguised entitlement wrapped in a plea for unity. She'd always been good at that, weaponizing family like it was a get-out-of-accountability card. I archived the email. Didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I'd finally accepted something I should have realized years ago. My family didn't miss me. They missed control. They missed being the center of the universe. And they couldn't stand the fact that the quiet kid they ignored at the dinner table now had a better address and a thicker spine. I started sleeping better after that. Deeper. Maybe it was the silence. Or maybe it was knowing I didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. Sometimes freedom isn't a new beginning. It's the ending you finally stop apologizing for. I used to think closure came with a conversation. Turns out it comes with clarity and a locked gate. It hit me one morning, sipping coffee in my kitchen, watching the sun come through windows they'd never helped pay for. I looked around and realized, everything in my life now? I built it. Every brick. Every bite. Every late-night debugging session and skipped vacation that led to this exact piece? They weren't part of any of it. And yet, they walked into my house like co-authors of a story they didn't bother reading. You know what's funny? For people who preached about being there for family, they had an amazing talent for disappearing whenever I needed anything. Middle school? Jenna won some student government award. I placed in the regional coding competition. They took her to dinner. I got leftover pizza. Senior year of high school? Jenna had a panic attack over a math final. I fixed our Wi-Fi during a snowstorm so everyone could keep working from home. They cried for her. Barely thanked me. College? I graduated with honors. Jenna got a flat tire the same day. Guess which story made it into the Christmas newsletter? That was the pattern. My life only existed in their world when it made Jenna look better or when they needed something. And now that their business had tanked and Jenna's influencer career was circling the drain, suddenly I was back in focus. Not as a son. Not as a brother. As a wallet. But here's the kicker, they still didn't see the irony. Still talked about values and sticking together like they hadn't left me out in the cold for decades and just remembered I existed once the heat got shut off at their house. The debt wasn't financial. It was emotional. And it had been overdue since the day I learned to stop expecting applause. It always starts with a "Hey, stranger." That's the message I got one Friday night from a number I hadn't seen in 4 years. Megan. Of course it was Megan. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what she was trying to do. Timing, right? Not a word after graduation. Not a single check-in when I vanished off the map. But now that my name was floating around LinkedIn and Forbes Under 30 had tagged me in a post I didn't even know they wrote, suddenly, I'm stranger again. Not Ryan. Stranger. I didn't reply right away. I let it sit there like a time bomb that had already exploded years ago. The next day, another message. I heard about your success. I'm really happy for you. Would love to catch up sometime. If you're open to it. That was cute. Real professional. Polished even. Like she was applying for a second chance with a new resume. Thing is, Megan didn't cheat on me. She didn't yell, didn't lie, didn't even leave. She chose someone else over me, and that someone else was my mother. She was so afraid of rocking the boat that she missed the part where I was drowning. Let my parents walk all over me and called it keeping the peace. That's the kind of betrayal that doesn't make headlines, but it cuts deeper than any affair. So no, I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, but because closure doesn't require conversation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. 3 weeks after I turned them away, I got a certified letter in the mail from my parents, typed, formal, like they'd lawyered up just to write a guilt trip. It started with, "We regret how distant things have become." Translation: "We regret that ignoring you no longer works in our favor." Then came the update. Jenna was moving back in with them, business still hemorrhaging money, bills piling up, and they were considering refinancing the family home. Now here's where it got good. They humbly invited me to a family sit-down. Their words, not mine. Sunday dinner like the old days. A chance to reconnect and discuss options. There was no signature. Just love, mom and dad at the bottom. Typed, no handwriting. Probably printed at the same desk they'd used to file for a business loan they hoped I'd co-sign. I didn't even hesitate. I threw the letter in the trash. Then I sat on my couch, ordered Thai, and watched a documentary about bears in Alaska who treat each other better than my own family ever treated me. You know what the real irony is? I used to dream of being invited to something like that, to be wanted, to be included. I would have dropped everything for one dinner where I wasn't invisible. Now they were offering it like it was some olive branch. But here's the thing about olive branches. You don't get to offer them after you've burned the whole tree. I didn't reply, didn't show up, and for the first time in my life that silence felt like power, not punishment. Let them have dinner. They can toast to the golden child and eat under a roof I didn't help pay for, because I never owed them anything. And now, they finally know it. The thing about revenge is, people expect it to be loud. Slammed doors, furious voicemails, a dramatic Facebook post with cryptic lyrics, and just enough vagueness to get Aunt Cheryl commenting, "Call me." But the real revenge? It's quiet, boring even. The kind that doesn't need explaining because it speaks for itself. That's what I gave them. I didn't ruin their lives. I didn't expose their finances. I didn't even return fire when Jenna hinted online that I had abandoned the family during hard times. I just kept living. Better. 3 months after they showed up, my company signed a major security contract with a Fortune 100 firm. Press releases, photos, interviews. My face in a tech magazine Jenna used to leave on our coffee table. Back when it only featured people she thought were worth her time. I didn't send them a copy. They found it anyway. I know because a week later, one of Jenna's old friends sent me a screenshot from Jenna's story. Her holding a glass of wine, smiling, captioned, "So proud of my brilliant brother. Always knew he'd be huge." Funny. I couldn't recall her saying that when she RSVP'd to my graduation ceremony by ghosting me. I didn't comment, didn't like it, didn't res-hair it. Because people like Jenna, they only show up when the flashbulbs do. They need proximity to success to feel like they're still part of the narrative. But this wasn't our story anymore. It was mine. And if my absence was a blank page in their version of events, then so be it. They never read my chapters anyway. I always thought closure meant silence. Turns out sometimes it means speaking clearly. Once, it was late, around 11 p.m. I was in my home office, sorting through contracts, when my phone buzzed. Uncle Rick. Haven't heard from him since the graduation dinner. The guy who handed me a check and a lifeline when nobody else could bother to look up from Jenna's Instagram. He never called unless it mattered. "Got a message from your mom," he said, voice low and weathered. "Says you've been cold." I smiled. "She say anything about the last 22 years? He chuckled. "Didn't think so." Then he paused, like he was picking his next words carefully. "She asked me to talk to you. Said you're holding onto bitterness." Told her that's funny. Coming from someone who couldn't remember what college you went to. That silence between us was the best conversation I'd had with a family member in years. Then he said something I didn't expect. You gonna tell him off or keep ghosting? And that's when I realized I didn't need a stage. I didn't need drama. But I did need one thing. My voice heard on my terms. So I wrote a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. Real ink, real paper, the kind of thing you send when you mean every word. It started like this. You've only ever noticed me when you needed something. So let me be clear once. I'm not a bank. I'm not a backup plan. I'm not the emotional crutch you ignored until your lives started falling apart. I am not coming back. I didn't leave to punish you. I left to protect myself. And I'm doing just fine. I mailed it. No return address. No expectation. Just the truth, hand-delivered to the people who spent years pretending they never needed to hear it. I figured that letter would be the last chapter. Then Megan knocked on my door. Not metaphorically. I mean literally. Stood there, middle of a rainy Tuesday, holding a paper bag and wearing the exact same perfume she used to leave on my hoodies. I opened the door. Said nothing. She offered a smile I'd seen 100 times before. Usually right before she excused someone else's behavior. Hey, she said. Didn't think you'd answer. I almost didn't. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I was in the neighborhood, she added. That's code for, I stalked your LinkedIn, saw your success, and suddenly remembered I once knew you. She held out the bag. It's from that Thai place you loved. Still can't eat there without thinking of you. I took the bag. Not because I missed the food, but because it gave my hands something to do besides slam the door. She looked around, trying to find a way in without asking. Your place is nice. I waited, and finally she got to the point. I heard about your family. I just wanted to say, I get it now. What it felt like. I tilted my head. Do you? She swallowed. They did the same thing to me, Ryan. After you left, I thought I could stay close to them, keep things peaceful. But once you were out of the picture, I stopped being useful. There it was. She didn't come to apologize. She came to be forgiven, so she could stop feeling guilty about watching me sink while holding someone else's towel. I didn't come to stir things up, she said, voice small. I just wanted to tell you I was wrong. About everything. I didn't yell. Didn't slam the door. I just looked her in the eye and said, I know. And then I closed the door. Because she wasn't the twist. She was just the reminder. The real twist was inside that letter I sent my family, and the response I got 2 weeks later. 2 weeks after I dropped that truth bomb in the mailbox, I got a response. Or at least I think I was meant to. Came in the form of a reply envelope. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in my father's sharp, blocky handwriting. The same way he used to label boxes in the garage, like even his words had to be useful or not exist at all. Inside, a letter. 1 page. Single-spaced. No greeting. We didn't realize how far gone you were, Ryan. Your tone was cruel. You've let money make you arrogant. Your sister is still struggling, and you think throwing stones is better than throwing a lifeline. We did the best we could. You were always quiet. We didn't know you were hurting. You chose to walk away. But don't pretend we pushed you. I read it twice, not because I didn't understand it, but because I needed to confirm what I wasn't seeing. No apology. No accountability. Just deflection, guilt, and one last grasp at control. It wasn't a response. It was a reflex. That letter wasn't for me. It was for them. One last attempt to rewrite history before they were officially erased from mine. I placed it down slowly, like something fragile. Then I laughed, quietly but deeply, because they thought they were delivering the final word. But the real power was that I didn't need to answer. See, when someone shows you who they are over and over, and then tries to gaslight you one last time on company letterhead, you don't fight it. You frame it. Hang it like a trophy. A reminder of how far you've come, and what you'll never go back to. You ever watch a movie where the villain just walks away at the end? No dramatic fall from a rooftop. No final showdown in the rain. Just silence. Distance. Power. That's what this ending is. No climactic confrontation. No airport speech. No last-minute hug where mom finally calls me her son. without following it with a request. Just me, standing in the life I built. Not in spite of them, because of them, because every cold shoulder taught me resilience. Every missed milestone sharpened my edge. Every favor withheld became fuel. The truth is, I stopped being angry a long time ago. What I feel now, peace. A peace that doesn't need permission, doesn't need approval, doesn't need them. They'll go on spinning their version of the story. How their son changed, got too successful, lost his way. That's fine. Let them. I don't live in their story anymore. I live in mine. And if there's a lesson buried in this whole mess, it's this. Sometimes revenge isn't a grand gesture. It's waking up in a home you bought yourself, pouring coffee in silence, and realizing that the life they pretended you'd never have is the one they now wish they could borrow from. But the door's closed, and this time is going to stay that way.